My name is Lon Safko, co-author of the Social Media Bible, published by John Wiley & Sons, the largest book ever written on the subject of social media. And today we are here with Jack Herrick, the founder and CEO of WikiHow. How cool is that? And we'll be speaking a little bit about social media and also about WikiHow and wikis. So let's get started. Jack, can you give us a little bit of background about who you are, WikiHow, how it got started, what a wiki is, please?
Sure. Well, my name's Jack Herrick. I noticed in the introduction you call me the CEO of WikiHow. I actually don't, I think a CEO is a pretty lofty title for a three-person company, so I just prefer the title founder.
Okay.
But let me give you a little background about WikiHow. WikiHow is, our goal is to build the world's largest, highest quality how-to manual, and we are a wiki collaboration to do so. It's very similar to Wikipedia. The easy way to think about WikiHow is Wikipedia is a wiki encyclopedia, and WikiHow is a wiki how-to manual.
That's pretty cool. And by the way, I got to tell you that ever since you guys published a widget, I mean, this is going back at least a year or two or more, every one of my Google homepages on all of my computers have WikiHow, and I start my day, I'm not kidding you, every single day by looking at your WikiHow, looking at the lists that come up, and actually clicking over and see. I learned so much stuff. It is so much fun.
It's pretty interesting, isn't it? It's amazing the variety of information, the type of information, and the quality of the information we get using the Wiki method. It's been really eye-opening for me. Like, when I started WikiHow, I wasn't exactly sure what was going to happen. I really wanted to build this how-to manual on all these different topics. But the Wiki method has really amazed me. I've been amazed seeing what the type of information people are writing about. It's definitely veered away from the traditional how-to manual at this point. We have things about relationships, about it's all the how-to topics you'd expect to find. How to fix your car, how to solve problems in your computer. But then we've just gone into totally different types of topics and really wild things. It's really expanding the definition of what a how-to manual can be.
When you had that moment of inspiration and you say, I'm going to do this, what kind of prompted you? What gave you that moment of inspiration?
Well, I've always really been interested in building a really big how-to manual, and I'll give you the long story here. So I owned the site eHow, which is sort of the Web 1.0 version of the how-to manual. Mm-hmm. And eHow's story is they got started in 1999 during the first boom, and they raised a ton of money from venture capitalists.
Yeah.
And they had 200 employees, and they were writing this massive how-to manual.
Wow.
And at the time, I had nothing to do with that company. I was doing something totally different. I knew the founder of the first eHow and had always admired the company. Thought it was a great idea. Unfortunately, when the downturn hit, the first internet downturn, eHow went into bankruptcy. Oh. And they had to lay off all their 200 employees, and basically the company went into a deep freeze. It was bought out by another venture capital funded company called Idea Exchange, and they tried to sort of nurse the site along and find a business model that would work, and they also failed to do that. They just wasn't profitable. They couldn't get it working, and they were about to shut the site off. And it was something I heard about, and I really liked the site. I didn't want to see it go down. At the time, I was working in another company, but I hated to see how die. And so a friend of mine and I got together and we bought the site, and we were both working full-time jobs, but we sort of brought the site back to life. We hired a couple of writers. We were sort of working away and sort of fixed a lot of the bugs on the old site, and it started to work.
Wow.
On a very, very small cost basis, we were able to get the site profitable, and it was working quite well. We were pretty excited about it. But when I was doing that, I became a little disillusioned with eHow. We hired writers, but what we found was you can't hire writers to cover all the world's topics in all the world's languages. So, for example, I could hire someone to write about mutual funds, Viagra, you name any high CPC keyword topic, and it was a very profitable thing to have someone write about. But if I wanted to have someone write about some of the really obscure things, there was no business model for it, and it really wasn't my vision to have a how-to manual that was really only covering high CPC topics. I really wanted to have a how-to manual that covered every single imaginable how-to topic, and also in multiple languages. And you just weren't going to get there with it with the professional writer model. At least you weren't going to get there in the high-quality method. You could pay people to produce a lot of schlock, but that wasn't what I wanted to do either. So I sort of puzzled, about how we can accomplish this goal, and in the process of sort of kicking around the internet, I, like many people, stumbled upon Wikipedia, and was just amazed at the quality of information, the breadth of the information, and as I learned more and more about how it was written, I became even more impressed about what they were doing. So I started thinking, hey, I wonder if we could, if we could take the same wiki model and apply it to the how-to manual. And so I tried that when my engineer Travis Darwin and I sort of beavered away in late 2004, trying to import the MediaWiki software and transform it into a how-to manual, something that would be better fitting for a how-to manual. And then we launched WikiHow on the anniversary of Wikipedia's birthday on January 15th of 2005.
Wow, congratulations. You had mentioned, you don't know so much maybe not that much about social media, but that's what this is. I mean, that's the exciting thing. That's why I contacted you to do this interview, because one of the things that I learned when writing the book, I'm writing the Social Media Bible, and I realized that I'm not an expert in everything that's social media. I know a lot about a lot. I know more about some. But what I realized my role in producing the book was not really being the expert and writing every single one of the chapters, even though I am writing the chapters. It's really about bringing people like you in, the experts that have very vertical, intense knowledge, and really what I call myself is an aggregator more so than an expert. And isn't that
interesting? Well, I've certainly learned a lot about wikis in the past couple of years.
Well, I think in your role, you're kind of an aggregator of experts in very, very vertical markets.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the wiki model, I view my role as basically creating a platform to allow people to create and share information. And, I myself not really writing the information or having much guiding hand in what's actually happening. I'm just trying to create a platform that allows the information to be shared and created and improved upon.
So the big question I always have when you talk about user-generated content, how do you herd the cats?
Well, see, wikis are, there's nothing really specific, I would say, I do to herd the cats, to use that expression. Wikis really work because I think there's a lot of people out there who want to do something, and a wiki allows people to sort of gather in one place to do it. And so WikiHow attracts a group of people who are as passionate as I am about building a large, freely shared how-to manual, and it allows them to do that. So, and it works in this virtuous cycle where, when I first started WikiHow, the very first month we had it up in January 2005, we had 2,000 people visit the site. And at the time, I thought that was great. And those 2,000 people, maybe 5 or 10 people actually wrote an article or edited something. And so there really wasn't much going on the site in very early days. But it works in a virtuous cycle where, the next month, we had those 5 articles or 10 articles, and those brought some people in from search engine traffic and what have you. And some of the people read the article and said, hey, this article's not very good. I can do a better job. And they pressed edit, and they'd improve the content. And then the content got better. Maybe that content moved up in the search engine rankings, and that brought more people in who, again, said, oh, wow, I can do better than this, and press edit and improve the content. And, the cycle keeps going. And that cycle is still running today on WikiHow.
So for those who don't know, could you just kind of give us a summary or definition of what a wiki actually is?
Sure. A wiki is a site. The simple definition is a site that anyone can edit. So if you're going around the internet, most sites you go to, you read content, but you generally can't edit it. You can often, in almost any site now, you can leave a comment to say, wow, this page was really good, or this page was really bad, or something less civil than that. But a wiki is a place where you can actually edit and completely change the information.
Okay. One of the things that through these interviews I'm learning is that some people have very strong business models, how they actually monetize their work. And many actually don't have any idea. They're just out there kind of doing it for free. Where in that spectrum do you guys fit? Do you have a business model that actually covers your overhead?
Yeah, we have. I'd say we have the simplest, minimalist business model you can get. We show Google ads on the pages of our articles. So if you go to any WikiHow page, you'll see some ads, see the ads by Google, and if someone clicks one of those ads, you'll make a very small amount of money. But fortunately, there's enough people visiting WikiHow now that we can now cover our costs.
Great.
For the first couple of years we weren't, but at this point we are. And it's been very minimalistic for us. We don't even show ads to registered users, and we in fact allow people to turn the ads off if they don't want to see them. So it's pretty low key.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Fortunately, we have small costs, so it works.
Yeah, keep your overhead low and your revenue high, and that's a good business model. One of the things that I'm learning about wikis is the widespread application of user-generated content. And I just heard some recent stories about Fortune 500 companies actually creating their own wikis for in-house knowledge base, it used to be called, where all of the employees can contribute on a particular subject so that it becomes a training manual. It becomes the sole source of information for that particular company. If somebody wanted to get involved in a wiki, would you recommend it? Or are there upsides, downsides? Does it make any sense?
Absolutely. I've become, every day that goes by, I become an increasingly larger fan of wikis.
Yeah.
When I first describe the wikis, the very simple definition is something that anyone can edit. The more complex definition, as you get more into wiki, there's a whole philosophy around it.
Yeah.
And the philosophy, some of the elements of the philosophy are assume good faith in everyone's contributions, assume that people are here to help and build knowledge, and knowledge comes in many different shapes and forms and from different people who you least suspect it from. And when people collaborate together to build something, you can really build something tremendously larger than any one person could build on their own.
Synergy.
And I think that has definitely happened in the case of WikiHow, and it's definitely happened in the case of Wikipedia. And I've also talked to people who've working at Fortune 500 companies, and and hearing the same sort of stories you just heard, that people within the enterprise are turning on wikis and finding that the knowledge in their organization is far more than people at the top would have assumed, and allowing the sort of bottoms up collaboration that can happen on a wiki produces knowledge that is impressive. And it's I think more organizations are going to try and figure this out. In fact, one company you might want to talk to is the U.S. State Department. They have a wiki internally called the Diplopedia, which runs on MediaWiki software, just like WikiHow and Wikipedia. And supposedly it's been a great resource for the State Department.
That's a pretty interesting application within the government, actually, them creating their own wiki.
Right. I think the CIA has one too,
but we're not allowed to talk.
But we're not allowed to talk about that one. Yeah.
Another question that kind of comes to mind is, how do you regulate the quality and the content? Because no matter which ones I read, they all have the same format. That they're very informative. They have photographs, step-by-step instructions. Who puts that work into making sure that you have constant quality?
Well, so this is a multi-part. Let me give a multi-part answer to this question because it's kind of complex. So the first answer, and we have multiple lines of defense, as you could call them. Our first answer is the WikiHow community. There are thousands of people who contribute to WikiHow over any given month, and within that group, there's a much smaller and tight group of people that will number in the hundreds of people who I'd call the hardcore WikiHow contributors, and they are responsible for really making sure the quality on WikiHow stays high.
Really?
Every edit that goes into WikiHow is looked at by another human. It's a volunteer who looks at the edit, says this edit's good or bad, or I'm going to check this edit in, or I'm going to boot this edit out, or I'm going to edit this edit to make it even better. And so that's happening all the time, all day long in real time, by hundreds of people around the world helping out. So that's our first line of defense.
Wow.
The second line of defense is readers. If we miss something, if our volunteer editors miss something, the volunteer hardcore contributors miss something, then readers will often catch something. If we make an error or let something slip in, readers will find it. And third, one of the things that is pretty exciting about wikis is we're finding more and more ways to improve quality. You may notice at the bottom of every WikiHow page now there's a is this article accurate? Yes, no button. And when people vote on those things, it allows us it percolates pages that might have accuracy problems at the top, and we work on them and improve them. And so to really allow us a situation where you would think there'd be complete chaos if we allow anyone to edit. We don't even require people to log in or tell us any information about themselves whatsoever. And yet, with allowing anyone to edit, we can create a pretty high quality resource out there.
that's an exciting philosophy that you had about the Wiki, and I think it also applies really to the social media in the entire industry. And one of the things that also I found exciting about what you just said is that the people themselves kind of police the articles, that people will look at it and point out inaccuracies and contribute, and they're all doing it really kind of in a positive way because they want to make a contribution. Do you see most people who participate really are kind of passionate and positive about what you're doing?
Yes, I mean, if you're not passionate about the shared how-to manual, you're not going to be working on it. Yeah. And so the people who are active to WikiHow are all as passionate as I am about it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be spending their free time doing it. That works because we have, we license everything under a Creative Commons license. All of our software is open source. We're really sharing this resource back with the world. And that's sort of what makes people do it, or one of the things that people will trust, that other contributions are going to stick around, even if I don't stick around.
Mm-hmm. And you use that key word, trust.
Right.
It's the trusted network, the trust in really the wisdom of the crowds, crowdsourcing.
Yeah, although I don't think readers have much trust in the wisdom of the crowds per se. I think if anything, I think there's a group of people out there who are willing to trust the wisdom of the crowds. Maybe they've read that book and they understand the concept, understand that these things do work. But I think the vast majority of readers are actually quite skeptical in the wisdom of the crowds, and quite skeptical on user-generated content and wikis in specific because we're so open. Mm-hmm. I notice all the time where an article on WikiHow will be really, really criticized and get a lot of negative comments from readers who think that an article written in the sort of fashion we write it just can't be accurate. But then if you go do the research and look into the article, it'll actually end up being much better than articles written on traditional, professionally published websites. So it's I think there's actually a large element of distrust that we have to get across. We have to cross the chasm with our users, with our readers, to prove that we actually have quite a good information source.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I think you're absolutely right. I think most people do distrust the wisdom of the crowds. Well, look, we've had 6,000 years of history that show that the wisdom of the crowd isn't necessarily always good. But the cool thing is, though, is that when you're talking about a very specific subject, there are incredible vertical subject experts on that, and if they're willing to take the time to contribute and to perfect it, really it's kind of being more policed by the individual who know the subject matter the best, as opposed to just tossing it out to the crowd masses.
That's absolutely correct. I could tell you from having done the wiki model and also done the professionally edited, professionally generated content model that the quality of our content is better than in my previous incarnations. So, in my previous sites. So I really think that it does work, but it takes it takes a long time to get the process working right.
And a good formula.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And I did notice one time that I did make an entry into Wikipedia, and I think the term is Spanked Pink, because there was some inaccuracies in what I believed was true, and it was really amazing how people from all over the world came in and said, "No, you're not exactly right there. It's really more like this, and here's a link to show you some more information." So
yeah,
that iteration.
WikiHow, Wikipedia are not perfect all the time, for sure. Like, there is no way I'm going to say that WikiHow is all the articles on it are perfect and great. That's definitely not the case. It's a process that works over time, and things. Generally, the articles on WikiHow don't always start out great. In fact, they generally start out pretty lousy. But it's a process where allowing people to edit and allowing people to improve the pages over time, and allowing our community of passionate editors to improve the pages, sort of makes the content better over time. But it can be a really long process.
Where do you see WikiHow in, say, 5 years from now? What's the ultimate goal here?
So WikiHow is trying to build the world's largest, highest quality how-to manual. And we want to be in English, and we want to be in multiple languages. So right now we are, give you update us today. Right now we are about 40,000 articles, and
wow.
We're read every month by 12.5 million unique readers, which makes us, according to QuantCast, makes us the 149th most popular site in the United States at this point.
Congratulations.
And we grow every month. in 5 years, I think we're going to be getting much closer to our goal. We are nowhere near the sort of the vision that we have right now of how-to manual, every topic, every page being the most accurate, up-to-date, and high-quality information on that topic available. We're nowhere near that goal. But in 5 years, we're going to be significantly closer.
Well, even now, 40,000 articles is a pretty good step in that direction.
Yeah, we're getting there. And of those 40,000, some of which are really, really good, and some of which are not very good at this point. So it's a process that little by little we'll get there.
That's cool. That is totally cool.
And the beauty of our model is that we can take a very long-term goal, long-term view on this. It's something that I think is really going to take decades to really build out to what we want to be. But we're working on building the world's how-to manual, and that's going to take some time.
And that's pretty cool. I like that slogan there, the world's how-to manual. The accumulation of all the knowledge of the world on how-to. I think that's an admirable goal.
Yeah.
And I got to agree. I mean, I love the stuff that's in there, so I'm going to support you any way I can.
Great.
Is there anything else that you want to tell? You can tell our listeners about WikiHow, about what you're doing, where you're going, what your philosophy is. Just anything you want to add here?
Well, I would hope people, editors, come on and give WikiHow a try. It's a very different experience than most social media sites, I think you'll find. Mm-hmm. The average social media site, it's still pretty early days for social media on the internet. But when I go use a lot of social media sites, they feel a little stilted and in some ways non-human to me. The interactions seem just odd. Like I'm friends with people I've met once at a conference and things like this on my social media sites. Where I think WikiHow, the sort of the interface you get from working on WikiHow, it's a little more human. You're really collaborating with people, mm-hmm. and it'll be all the sort of things that collaboration's about. Sometimes you'll disagree with people, and sometimes you'll love the work someone's doing. Sometimes you'll dislike the work someone's doing. But you by forcing people to sort of work on the same page together, you find you learn more about yourself, and you learn more about interacting with others, and it's a really fun experience. So I would hope people give editing there a try. And that's about it, I suppose. One
other thought, too, that was just kind of came to mind is I'm a real strong fan of strategic partnering. Have you considered, I'm just tossing a quick idea out, partnering with, This Old House and segmenting and feeding just how-to tips on home repair? Would that be something that would work?
Yeah, it's something we haven't done much of. Because we're just kind of limited as an organization of what we can take on right now.
Sure.
But it's a good idea. It's something we should be doing more of. And it's something as I have more time or other volunteers want to take this task on, it'd be fun to check out.
Yeah, it would just kind of seem to me that if I had a vertical site that is about how to, like This Old House or many of the other general topics, crafting sites, that it would be kind of cool to be able to pull by category from your database into my website. I'd love to partner with you.
Yeah.
And then the part B of that question is DIY and some of the other. Do you kind of consider them, or do they consider you competitors, or is there any overlap here?
Well, there are a ton of DIY sites on the internet right now. It's a very hot item for whatever reason. I look at this as we're building a how-to manual. The world's how-to manual. It's going to take it. Our view is sort of decades, and mm-hmm. We're not really building a business model, which is, hey, we're going to have to do this. We're building something within next year. We're going out of business, which I think a lot of these new sites are sort of focused on going big or going home.
Right.
So I think I view us as so totally different from those other sites. I don't really look at them as like, oh, these are competitors. These are guys we've got to keep away. In fact, a lot of these sites, we have a lot of the employees of these other sites go to WikiHow and write articles on WikiHow and link back to their own sites, and we're totally happy with that.
That's clever, sure.
It creates more knowledge for us, and creates some traffic for them. That's great for them, it's as long as it's meeting our goals of building the world's how-to manual, then we're all on board.
And I love that. You just summarized it perfectly. I mean, that really is what social media is about, is total collaboration, not just with users, but the people that are trying to build things. I love that about this industry.
Yeah, it's fun.
So, Jack, can you tell us where people can find out more information about WikiHow? I mean,
just go to wikihow.com.
Easy enough.
And you just read around the site. We have a tour if you want to become a new user and learn a little about editing, or if you want to just sort of check out our articles, just hit random page and you'll learn all sorts of crazy stuff.
That's great. Well, I'd really like to thank Jack Herrick, the founder of WikiHow, for being here today and sharing those amazing insights. Really, Jack, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thanks for having me.
This is cool. This has been Lon Safko, the co-author of the Social Media Bible. Be sure to check out the other valuable social media tactics, tools, and strategies that can be found in the Social Media Bible book and its companion website, www.thesocialmediabible.com. For more information about me, Lon Safko, please, by all means, go to my website, www.lonsafko.com. And again, Jack, thank you again for being here today.
Great. Thanks, Lon.
Thanks.